Just a heads up about this video, there's going to be spoilers. There's really no way to talk about Last of Us 2 um, and kind of review it, talk about the good things, the bad things, what happy, what upsets us about it, why everybody either. I mean, this game is just so people seem to either love it or hate it. There's not a lot of in between, and there's really no way to talk about it without spoilers. I mean, we're a couple weeks after the game came out, so if you really care about that, I would imagine that you've already played it by now. But some people aren't able to, and I totally get that. So some people might be waiting till a later date. So I just wanted to give you a heads up that this video is going to be filled with spoilers. This is more meant to be a I, this review is meant to be more of a not a super glowing review, but also not a super negative review. After playing the game, I've just seen both ends of the spectrum, and nobody is able to meet in the middle. And so that's what I'm going to try to do here. Um, so just full forewarning. This is going to have spoilers. The first little bit I'm just going to talk about kind of mechanics and stuff, but honestly there's not much to talk about. This game is it have you if you've played The Last of Us 1, you've played The Last of Us 2, there is not a lot of changes that they made in this game, you know what I mean? Like it is what it is. They're really the only thing that people are coming to The Last of Us for is the story. So that's just wanted to give that warning before we jump into it.
If I ever were to lose you, I'd surely lose myself. Everything I have found here, I'm not found by myself. Try and sometimes you'll succeed to make this man of me. All my stolen missing parts I've no need for any more, 'cause I believe, and I believe 'cause I can see our future days of you and me.
Wait! Let me go! Please.
You just come after her.
So in The Last of Us 1, you become attached to this character, Joel. You start off playing as his daughter, and eventually, and it's at the beginning of an outbreak. This cordyceps mushroom virus is taken over, and people have gone crazy and are turning into these weird mushroom zombie things. So, at the very beginning of The Last of Us 1, we play as the person that we lose. You play as her daughter, he ends up dying in her arms, and that sets the stage of how dark and twisted this world is going to be, which a lot of people kind of weren't expecting, because this is the Crash Bandicoot guys, the Jak and Daxter guys, the Uncharted guys. These guys, this Naughty Dog Studios does not really make super serious things. We know that we can come to them for a lighthearted story, and I think that, especially for those of us who actually care about the industry, there are some people who don't even know who Naughty Dog is, plays the games, don't know the developers. But the people who don't really know who the developer is, the people who don't even know what they made, these are not the people that are getting on the internet and hating on this game, loving on this game. These are not the people that you are seeing be so loud. So, in understanding that, we as a community kind of see Naughty Dog as this, okay, but we're always going to have our silver lining. We're always going to have our happy ending because we've played these games before. So, and Last of Us kind of breaks that notion for us. You know what I mean? Because at the end of The Last of Us, Joel has to make a decision to save Ellie that dooms the world pretty much. We learn throughout the course of the game that Ellie is possibly the only cure to this virus. And so, with that, she is being delivered because she, as pretty much a package, hey, we are going to use her to make this cure. And Joel is the guy to do it because after losing his daughter, him and his brother, we know that they've got up to some rough stuff. They are just they don't care about anything. They're only out for themselves. They're not out, for society. They're just here and for the money to make a profit, is what we've learned. Well, over the course of the game, Ellie becomes like a daughter to Joel. Joel cannot imagine losing Ellie, and he unfortunately has to make a choice at the end of the game. He makes a choice for Ellie, and that is going to set up the events of Last of Us 2.
You keep finding something to fight for. Now, I know that's not what you want to hear right now.
Swear to me. Swear to me that everything that you've said about the Fireflies is true.
I swear.
Okay.
And so with that comes the problem. I think a lot of people aren't quite happy with the payoff. We were expecting so much more from what transpired at the end of Last of Us 1 to what happens in Last of Us 2. Like, there are some questions that need to be answered. So first off, let's go ahead and jump into what makes The Last of Us 2 different gameplay wise. Honestly, not a lot. In the first one, you had to make these shivs in order to get a stealth kill to automatically one-hit kill things. Ellie has a knife, so you don't have to make those. She can get the one-hit kills, which makes her encounters a little bit easier. At no point, you play for Joel. You play as Joel for like maybe a couple minutes, and the rest of it, you don't play as him again, because this game focuses on Ellie. And her journey. The first one was about Joel and his journey and how he became a better person thanks to Ellie. He makes a song about it, and he can't imagine losing Ellie. And that is where, that question is going to be answered in Last of Us 2, because Joel has to account for his actions. At some point, Ellie is going to find out that Joel killed off the Fireflies in order to save her. This sets up the repercussions that are then paid for in Last of Us 2. So at this point from now on, that's about as much as I can talk without getting into spoilers. So if you're still watching at this point, you haven't played the game, you haven't, you still want to, you haven't watched any Let's Plays and you still want to, stop watching. That's because I'm about to get into full spoiler territory for the game. So, Last of Us 2, within 2 hours of the game, I'd say about 2 hours, you play as this character named Abby, who you're playing with her group, and you're kind of like, well, why did we just switch from Ellie to Abby? Who is this Abby character that we know nothing about? What's going on here? Well, it ends up that Abby is the daughter of the doctor that Joel kills in The Last of Us 1, who was going to take the cure out of Ellie's brain and make a forever cure. And so she is now on a rampage, a revenge rampage to take out Joel, who killed her father. Understandable. So that's what happens 2 hours in. We watch Abby beat Joel to death with a golf club. Ellie had came in to save him, and unfortunately had to watch Joel, her father figure, get beaten to death in front of her. And that's something that has not, and she gets let go. Joel's brother gets let go because they only came after Joel. And so that is where the game starts spiraling out of control. Because for the next 20 hours, we are then set up on a revenge course. The player, Ellie, the viewer, everybody here is like, okay, Abby has to die. We are 100% on board with Ellie. Abby has to die. She killed off one of our favorite characters. She killed off Joel. We don't understand why. Even as I was playing, I was like, I get that Abby probably had her own reason, but it doesn't matter what her reasoning is. Joel was my man. Abby's got to go. So for the next 20 hours, you start coming into contact with Ellie's new friend. She has a new love interest, and I can't even, Dina. Dina is her love interest or something like that. And there's a whole convoluted mess. The problem with the story is it jumps around so much. It's hard to remember these characters. It's hard to care about these characters at some parts because the story you're in the nowadays, and then so it all happens in 3 days. You're trying to get to where Abby is, and it all takes it all takes place over the course of 3 days. So as you're going at the end of each day, you're gonna go to a back event, like an event that happened in the past with you and Joel and everything like that. And it's so hard to keep up with because of that. And since we're doing so much back and forth, I feel like we lose so much momentum. You know what I mean? Like, you have me on this collision course of revenge, so why do you keep showing me these snippets of me and Joel's brother? Like, it's good for world building and understanding, but because spoilers, this first 20 hours is not going to be the full game. This Ellie playthrough is not going to be the full game. We have to cram this stuff in, when if we had made a less convoluted story that is so jam-packed, focused on revenge, like why revenge is bad. So they want us on a fucking comic course of revenge. Like, we need to get here as soon as possible to kill off Abby, but at the same time they are constantly banging in our heads how bad revenge is, even though, like, I mean, I know that, and I would hope that you know that as a person. So it is showing us every step along the way how Ellie is losing herself because of her revenge course, and she's losing more of the people that she loves, including herself, because of this revenge. Ends up, the whole reason you lose Joel is because Abby was on revenge of her own. So it's like, revenge begets revenge begets revenge. You know what I mean? So no matter what we do, if we keep taking our revenge, then everyone at the end is just going to die off. Nobody's going to be left. And so but the problem with that is that we're already on Ellie and Joel's team. We're already team Ellie and Joel. Also, at no point in this game do you have any control over the big picture. At no point is it like, do you want to kill this person or do you want to let them go? So they're making you do these things. They're making you do some pretty terrible things and then be like, man, don't you feel pretty bad about that? You just killed that person. You just tortured that person. You just beat them to death with a lead pipe. Don't you feel bad about that? And it's just like, no, not really, because what was I supposed to do? I could not keep going if I didn't do this. And in fact, it was a cutscene, so I myself didn't do it. I just watched you do it. So no, I don't really feel that bad. And at one point, so you kill this one person with a lead pipe, then later on you kill Abby's fucking love, whatever, like the person that she loved, and the person that she loved had a girlfriend and had knocked her up, so she was like super pregnant, due any day, and you end up killing both of them. And it's like, you just killed a pregnant lady. Like, how do you feel about that? Like, well, they tried to kill me first, and why was this pregnant lady out on the front lines? Like, if you want me to care about this child, it seems like she didn't even care enough about this child to not be out here. Because it's not like you run into her house and stab her. You actually find out later, as playing as Abby, these people, she goes out on this mission.
Hi. Hey. I actually cleared you for active duty.
Barely.
You could probably get a stay if you ask.
I'd rather not sit around if I don't have to.
No one's okay with this?
Why would it be up to Owen? We need to grab Alice on our way.
This pregnant lady, I can't even remember what her name is, but she goes out on this mission, and the people are like, hey, you're like, are you in any, should you be doing this? And she's like, why not? And me as the player, I'm just like, because you're fucking pregnant, because you're like about to pop anytime, maybe that's why. Do you care about this child at all? Like, it's just everybody, like, it's just like it wants you to feel so bad. The Last of Us 1 was fantastic because it never felt ham-fisted. It never felt like it beat you over the head with, hey, Joel's a bad guy, like, he's not a good guy. Like, we know that. We just intuited that. The developer trusted the player enough that they knew, like, hey, these guys, they're gonna get it. Like, they know what we're doing probably is bad at some points, and he's probably not the best guy, but we've already chosen this side. This is the story that we want to tell. Everybody here is walking a pretty thin gray line. Everybody's doing good and bad. This is just, hey, we're on this team. So, but in The Last of Us 2, they're wanting to hit us over the head with that, and they just truly don't believe in their player. And so no matter how good some story beats are, and this has some of the best writing I've ever seen in a game. Truly, it had me at the point to where I was tearing up, and like, I mean, because these are characters that I care about, that I've spent time with, and it's actually showing me more stuff of why I should care. But half the game is spent with Ellie hating Joel. Like, every memory you have of Joel after the death, besides like one, is you finding out, hey, you did this with the Fireflies or whatever, so I'm done with you, Joel. Like, we are not friends anymore. I want nothing to do with you. She wouldn't even hear him out. Like, I did this to save your life. She's like, and like, goes into this whole thing. And so she ends up pretty much hating Joel and leaving him. And so that is just like, so it's like, so for most of the game, you're kind of like, well, Ellie seems like she doesn't even care about Joel at this point. So why are we so hell-bent on revenge? We know that it's because she felt bad with how she treated Joel. Like, we get that. We're not dumb. But also, you're not doing a very good job at portraying it because you're trying to cram too much into one game. That's the problem. This game could have been stretched out into, like, some of this could have been saved for Last of Us 3. Honest to God, half of it should have been saved for Last of Us 3 because this game was far too long. Because, so the first 20 hours of the game, you're playing as Ellie and you're on your revenge path and you're on board. But then you still have like 13, 15, somewhere around those hours left of a game that honestly most people check out because of the twist. Playing with Abby. So as you get to the point of you're right there, you kill the the pregnant chick and all that I talk about. You come back to your theater thing. You talk with Joel's brother, who has been helping you, the baby daddy of your girlfriend Dina. That you get these people back together and you're like, hey, because you find out that Dina's pregnant. You don't know that when you first head out. Like now, because Dina's helping you throughout the game. Now it's like, oh shit, we just found out Dina's pregnant. Hey, what about that? Huh? Dina's pregnant. Now, aren't you scared that she's gonna die? Yeah, I mean, I guess I didn't want Dina to die in the first place because, you know, I like her as a character as much as I possibly can. But it just feels, again, like they're using so many tropes. You kill so many dogs that later on you're going to care about. You kill these people that later on you're going to care about. You know, we have quite a few pregnant chicks in here. Like, how do you feel about killing the pregnant chick? Oh, what are you going to do about Dina? Like, she has a baby in her. Don't you care? Like, it's so heavy-handed. So the problem that most people have with the last half of Last of Us 2 is the big shocker is, oh, now we're playing as Abby. Now we're playing as Abby, who's the bad guy, and like nobody wants that because we hate her, but they're going to make you play as her. So because their big idea was, well, we want to show you that, you know, hey, she had her own reasons, you know, maybe she's not all bad, which anyone with half a fucking brain cell could have already figured that out. In fact, like, I mean, you'll figure that out pretty much when it's happening, that she's not doing it for no reason. Like, hey, she's probably taking revenge. Yeah, you're part of the Fireflies, and it was probably somebody that you loved that Joel killed off. Yeah, we know that, game, but we've already chosen a side, and it's not Abby's side. Like, is this some kind of revelation that you think you're pulling on us? Because it truly isn't. Like, it's not. So you're having to then play through as Abby, and you're seeing her side of the story. Every dog you kill in the game, oh, like, this is the dog. You're playing fetch with this dog. Like, oh, I bet you feel pretty bad about you killing that dog, that poor defenseless dog that tried to rip out your throat now, don't you? No, because if I didn't kill this dog, then I couldn't have gone any further, and I couldn't have progressed in your game, guys. Like, you're trying to force me so bad to care about things that I don't care about. Like, if I have to choose my life over somebody else's, or like over an animal's, I'm gonna choose my life. Like, I'll just be completely honest with you. Maybe that makes me the asshole here, but I'm gonna choose my own life, my loved one's life, my family's life, my friend's life, over people I don't even know, over people who are trying to kill me. I'm sure they have their own reasons. This sucks. Like, this whole thing sucks. I mean, like, we're living in a terrible outbreak. We're like 70% of the world is dead. And yeah, like, it sucks. I know you're having to do your own thing, but hey, so am I. Like, it sucks that we can't work together, but it is what it is. So now we're playing as Abby, and they're introducing us to the characters that we know, hey, later on, these characters are going to be the ones that you killed, but hey, they're pretty cool, right? And then you're seeing Abby, like, well, you know, ends up Joel had killed her father, and she came in there and saw that Joel had killed her father, and like, so you would do the same thing. Yeah, I probably would do the same thing, but her dad wasn't innocent in this. Her dad was not an innocent man. Her dad was going to actually kill Ellie to make the cure. So the problem with Joel and Abby's father is neither one of them asked what Abby wanted. At the end of Last of Us 1, Abby is unconscious the entire time when this shit is going on, when she gets to the Fireflies. So they didn't sit down and say, okay, Abby, would you like to sacrifice yourself? You know, Joel didn't ask, like, you know, it's up to you, you know, whatever you want to do. The doctor didn't say, okay, we're going to put this in your hands. We totally understand if you don't want to sacrifice yourself, you know, for the greater good. But we at least are going to ask you. No, her dad was going to fucking murder Ellie in order to make a cure. And he gave no qualms about it in the story. Like, he was like, yeah, like, well, this is what needs to be done. Ends up the Firefly leader from the first one, the one that Ellie was friends with, she didn't want to do it, but she ends up agreeing. And so, like, you're both wrong. Joel is in the wrong, and the doctor, Abby's father, is in the wrong, because you did not ask Ellie's opinion. You should have trusted Ellie to make the right choice, whether she wanted to do it or not. If she wanted to die for the greater good, Joel, you gotta let her do it. If she didn't want to die, hey, Abby's dad, doctor guy, you can't murder people, like, and then have the moral high ground. Life doesn't work like that. But they're wanting it to, but they're almost wanting you to feel like, hey, Joel was the bad guy here. He killed the guy who was, gonna make the cure, who was going to murder a little girl. Like, nobody's the good guy here. So we're now watching Abby go through all this, and she has her own shit that's going on. She has some baby mama drama because the guy that she loves has fallen for another person, and they're gonna have a baby together, and it's a whole thing that I just didn't care about because I didn't give a shit about Abby. But I will say, so there's 3 factions in the game. There's the Jackson faction, which is the Ellie faction. There's the Wolves, which is the Abby faction, and there's the Scars, that is the cult bad guys of this game. Like, they're the ones that everybody is like, hey, they're the bad guys. But it ends up, if you read all the papers and stuff that you find along the way, maybe this cult isn't so bad either. So maybe there are no bad guys in this game. Maybe we're all the bad guys. Ooh, mind fucking blown, Isn't that a mind-blowing revelation? Like, we really did something here. In fact, Abby ends up saving this brother and his sister, who are escaping from the Scars, because the Scars are very much, they're a cult that is very much like, women's are women's, men's are men's. Like, this is going to be like how it is. And ends up, the brother of the game is a transsexual who is going from female to male. And so he was supposed to be a wife. His lot in life was to be a wife of an elder. And he didn't want to do that because that is not how he felt as a person. Totally understandable. So his sister helps him to escape. These two end up being like my favorite characters of the game besides Joel, to be honest with you. I liked, there's a handful of characters that I do like along the way, but they're not really fleshed out enough. That's the problem with them. There are some characters that you like and then totally does a flip, like Joel's brother, which we'll talk about. But Levi, and I can't remember his sister's name off the top of my head, but like those two are just absolutely make playing as Abby worth it, because at the end of the game I was like, I don't care who lives and dies at this point, but Levi better make it. Make Last of Us 3 about Levi, because he's fucking cool, and like he's the only one that gets it, that like, we still should not lose ourselves in this revenge shit. Because so you save these two, it ends up as Abby, you save Levi and his sister, you go through this whole game together. One of the biggest problems is, as you're playing as Ellie at the beginning, there's a level up system. You're leveling up your traits, you're leveling up your guns. When you become Abby, you have to do the whole thing again. You have to make your own skill tree. You have to level up your own guns again. You're leveling up somebody that you absolutely hate. So, and it's going to take you a little while before you start. It takes me 5 hours before I start caring about Abby at all. So it's like, I'm just sitting here playing like, what the fuck am I doing here? Like, what am I doing here? And during because you're going to play the 3 days that I talked to you about, you're going to do that all over again as Abby. So, but at the end of each day, just like with what you had to do with Ellie, there's going to be a memory. It's like they have this template, and they're like, okay, we can't break from this template. Every time we see an Ellie memory, we've got to see an Abby memory. And we have to show like, hey, Abby went through some shit. You know what I'm talking about? So, hey, this is just how it's going to have to be. Let's show that. And so that makes it just feel like you're such a stickler to your own plans. You know what I mean? And so it just kind of, it breaks up the flow so much. It stretches it out. This what should have been a 20-hour game has been stretched out to a 35-hour game. So you've just tacked on like so much time that if you were better at cutting out the trimming the fat, this could have been a fantastic game. Because I know it sounds super negative right now, and I know I'm sounding super negative on this game, but there, like I said before, there are genuinely some parts of this game that I'm like, when people ask me if they should play, I'm like, there are parts of this that if you love The Last of Us 1, you have to see. You have to see these parts of this game, but it's like brilliant moments that you have to walk across this doo-doo shit bridge in order to get across these fantastic moments. You know, like I should not have to trudge through so much shit to get to the good. I didn't have to do that in the first one. You know, there were some parts with the gameplay that I guess could have been a little bit better, but the same is true about The Last of Us 2. You didn't really fix any of that. You kept all that the same. The only thing you did was make a worse I know plotted isn't a word, but a worse built plot is the best way I can describe it. There's so many, like, there's just so the gems you have to make your way towards. It's kind of hard to explain, but like to get to the good meat and potatoes, you have to eat so many peas and carrots, and it's almost unfair at a certain point. And also, which I wasn't going to talk about this at all, but if you love the game, there's just two loud parts of the audience that is just completely stupid. So if you hate the game, the loud contingency of these people is like, you know, the fucking agenda, the fucking gay agenda, the fucking trans agenda, like that's what ruined the game. You know, the feminist agenda, they killed off Joel because, you know, they wanted strong female leads or whatever. That's not true. I figured Joel was going to die at the beginning. I don't care if everyone that you play as is a female. I don't care if everyone's gay. Who gives a shit if it's done right? But sometimes it doesn't feel like it's done right. Some characters are done fantastic. Like Levi being a transgender character, I think they did it perfectly. They didn't sit here and harp on it too much because that should not be your entire identity as a character. Like, who you are is who you are. So who gives a shit, like, who you like or what gender you was or anything? Like, that doesn't matter. Like, sure, that can be some crucial plot points, like, hey, you didn't want to be a fucking sister wife because you identify as a male. I get that, man. Let's go. Let's get you out of this bad situation. You know, don't hammer it home, and they didn't. But I think they did a fantastic job on that. I really do think they did a fantastic job. But also the people who are giving it 10 out of 10s and loving it are only seeing this loud, you know, portion, and they're like, well, if you don't like the game, it's just because, you know, you're misogynistic or you're homophobic and you don't want to see this in your games. And it's not true. In fact, you're taking away a lot from the game because you're saying that that's all the game has to offer, and that's 100% not true. That's so reductive, you know? It's almost sickeningly reductive. And so just seeing these two go up against each other, like it's a 10 out of 10, it's a 0 out of 10 because of these reasons, like, no, honestly, it's somewhere in the middle, and that's even worse. Because at least if something's fantastic, hey, great. If a game that was spectacular is now just this fucking failure, then you don't have to worry about it because you don't have to pretend that it exists, and the story doesn't matter. The big problem with this game is there are fantastic moments, and the characters that you care about, you have to play through this game or watch a let's play of it because of you want to see where the story goes. And the story, they don't just totally drop everything. So it is worth seeing that. And that's what's so infuriating about it. So in the end of the game, Abby catches up to Ellie and is, you know, there's a whole fight thing, and she could have killed Dina, her pregnant girlfriend, but Levi was like, no, we're better than this, don't do it. So Levi is the only one who has any character growth at all, because like Abby keeps seeing this bad shit happening and is like, well, I'm just gonna continue doing the bad shit because you did the bad shit. And Ellie's doing the same thing. Without Levi, this game would have completely fell apart. I'm just gonna tell you right now. Without Lee, like, this game is nothing. So after that, Ellie, Dina, Abby, Levi go their separate ways. Levi's sister, who I talked to you about earlier, she dies, unfortunately. It's very sad. So now it's Ellie and Dina. It's Levi and Abby. They go their separate ways. Ellie and Dina are living their perfect life on the farm. The baby's born. They have a fantastic life. And so you think, hey, this is going to be the end of the game. Okay, I hated the whole part with Abby, except for the good parts. This is a good ending. Nope. You still have 3 hours left because Joel's brother does a total 180. He was the one telling you not to go after revenge to begin with. Now he's like, he guilt trips Ellie into leaving everything that she loves behind. Goes after a revenge trip on Abby. Ends up Abby is captured by a 4th faction. Ellie is now going after her, has to infiltrate this 4th faction that we're now dealing with. Finds Abby like pretty much withered away, super skinny. Her and Levi were hung up on these crosses things, and Ellie cuts her down, cuts Levi down. There's 2 boats. You think that Abby and Levi are gonna get away clean? Nope, because Ellie has not learned her lesson at all. So now we're gonna fight to the death. Abby's like, no, we can't do this, blah, 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 blah. And Ellie's like, I'll kill Levi if you leave. You killed Joel. Like, whatever, man, whatever. So the final fight of the game, I was just so checked out because I was like, okay, so we're never going to learn. Whatever, kill her off, do whatever you want to do as long as Levi survives. So you fight Abby, you're sitting there choking her, like, at the end of the game. And yeah, you end up letting her up. Abby had already bit off your fingers, so now Ellie has like, 8 fingers left. And it's just, she goes back home and Dina has left, and they sit there, and throughout the game, Joel had taught Ellie to play the guitar. So Ellie loves playing the guitar now. So now she can't even play the guitar anymore because she's missing her picking fingers. And her chord fingers, I guess I should say. And so that's how the game ends. Ellie is going off on her own, I'm guessing, to try and find Dina, leaves the guitar behind, and the whole game just feels pointless. You never get your revenge. You've lost everything, and it's just like the whole game had a hopeless feeling. It ends with a hopeless feeling. Nothing good has happened, and it's over. And that's it. And it just felt unworth it. I'll be completely honest with you. And all these people that are out here like, well, you just didn't get it. Like, that's why you didn't like it. You just didn't understand the nuance of the game. But there is no nuance. It's just revenge is bad, and we're going to show you why revenge is bad because we're going to treat you like children that don't understand that revenge is bad. Like, you guys are kind of dumb, huh? Like, you guys don't get that revenge is bad, huh? So we're gonna show you both sides of the story instead of telling a just one singular, well-told story. They split it up into 2, and it just didn't work. I mean, it just didn't work. I guess it worked for a lot of reviewers because it's got a 95 on Metacritic. But if you scroll down to the bottom of Metacritic, you'll see a lot of the unscored reviews from these big websites that are a little bit more negative. So that's pretty strange. So this game, but that's the thing. The game is not a 10 out of 10. The game is not a 0 out of 10, as I mentioned before. And again, like I mentioned before, that's more damning than anything. This game is a solid 7 out of 10. I'll be honest, like anybody going above, below it, like, because it's above mediocrity, but it's so far from perfect, which, no game is ever going to be perfect, but it's so far from a masterpiece that it's crazy. Like, there's no way you could call this game a masterpiece, especially dealing with all the stuff that you have to deal with. And like, how can you in good conscience call this game perfect or the worst game ever made? It just doesn't work. The problem is it's such a high profile game. Like, if whenever a Grand Theft Auto, a Halo, one of these games comes out, like, it's an all or nothing type thing. Let's be honest. Nobody can consume it and be honest with what it is, because we loved this game so much. So if this isn't the perfect game, then it's the worst game. And that's not true. Like, it sucks, but like, hey, you can recognize some of the good parts of this game, and you can recognize the bad parts of this game, and that's what makes a whole game. It sucks that it does not live up to The Last of Us 1. It broke my heart but it truly isn't the worst thing to come out this year, or really any year either. So it's just a game that honestly, a lot of it isn't worth your time, and it definitely isn't worth $60, even though, like, I guess it's worth it, like, time wise, because it's a long ass game. But it's just it's just gonna leave such a sour taste in your mouth. And honestly, I never want to touch this game again. Like, you know, here lately I've been thinking about, hey, before this I was like, hey, I'd like to play through The Last of Us again. At no point was I like, yeah, I want to play through The Last of Us 2 again, because it's just too long and drawn out. Like, it's just, and it's so not unfun to play, but it's not like, it's not the gameplay isn't awesome enough to warrant another playthrough. Like, I saw the story, I'm done with it. Like, this is it. But yeah, that's my thoughts on the game. Honestly, I feel like people have gotten way out of control with it. People who are upset because of the agenda, because, you know, it has homosexual characters, transgender characters, it has a lot of female leads. That's bullshit. Like grow up. But also, that's not, you can't be mad at people who don't like the game and say that that's the only reason they don't like it. You know what I'm saying? Like, you really have to get better at giving your own opinions, guys. Like, you stop being so black or white and be able to see the in-betweens. That's the problem with game journalism nowadays. That's the problem with a lot of, like, user reviews, paid reviews, is just like nobody can see the nuances of anything anymore. And as I said before, it's all or nothing, you know? And it's just, it gets so aggravating, especially with a game like this that is kind of, it's a little bit better than middle of the road. But that's it. That's, you know, that's my entirety of that game. I've sat on this for a couple weeks now. I beat it quite a while ago. My entire Let's Play of the game is up on Twitch if you want to see it, see my reactions to it. I left it pretty uncut so that you'll get the entirety of the game. It ended up being 35 hours, as I mentioned before. I actually put it in a playlist. I'll put it in a link down below if you do want to watch that, because I'm not going to put it on my YouTube, because I just honestly don't see the point of it. But if you do want to see that, I'll leave a link down below. But yeah, also, just a heads up, I am starting to make merch. This is actually a piece of merch that I did, Hot Nasty Drops. It has to do with, like, you know, Apex Legends, you know, hot drops. If you watch my channel, kind of get it. But there is going to be some more merch coming to that, to my site, and I'll leave a link down to that below. I really appreciate, you know, the support, but also, you don't have to. I just appreciate you guys taking the time out of your busy schedules to watch my videos and, like, just spend time with me. I love talking with you guys. So I'd really love to hear from you down below in the comments or in my Discord. Let me know what you think. If you played The Last of Us 2, I'd love to hear your thoughts on it. If you think I got stuff wrong, hey, I'm willing to listen to that too. But yeah, that's it, guys. I really appreciate it, like I said before, and I hope to see you next time. Also, be safe out there. Shit has been going crazy, so just please be safe. But yeah, I'll see you guys next time. Bye-bye.